I was the #1 science student in the whole province. Just a week after I handed my $5 million prize to my dad, the blistering apocalypse struck. Our supplies were already running low, but my brother Kyle decided to share our rations with his fling, our neighbor Mia. Then he turned around and told me I had to brave the heat to do the shopping. Ignoring my pleas, my parents and brother Ethan shoved me out the door. I collapsed at the doorstep, unable to get back inside no matter how hard I knocked. When I came back to life, I made a vow to love myself more. I wanted to go to college and watch my entire family fall apart in the apocalypse. Holding the $5 million check, I couldn't quite wrap my head around it. The principal and company reps beside me were bursting with congratulations for my top score, but I was over the moon because I had been reborn. Tears streamed down my face like a river, and everyone thought I was overwhelmed by my achievement. Only I knew I was grateful for a second shot at revenge. I laughed through my tears, leaving everyone around me in confused sympathy. This time, I was going to use the deadly heat to make those who killed me pay. After leaving the school, I headed straight to my own bank account with my ID and deposited the check there. Calmly, I returned to the home where I had spent my life giving, only to die knocking on its door again. Kyle was gaming in his room, and Ethan was in the living room with the latest smartphone. Mom was lying in bed, streaming short clips and crying. So ironic. She could shed tears for strangers in those videos, but stayed indifferent to her own daughter's misfortune. "Luna, make dinner. Your dad will be home soon," Mom called out without looking up. I'd been cooking since I could reach the stove. Even during my crazy senior year, I hoped Mom would cook once in a while so I could study more. But Kyle shot that down. "Mom works 3 shifts at the mill. She doesn't have time to cook every meal. You're a girl. Even if you get into college, we can't afford it. Why bother?" he said. I looked at my so-called loved ones with growing hatred. I told myself it wasn't time yet. Just a few more days, and I'd have my revenge. I walked toward the kitchen. Ethan loved chicken soup. "We have a chicken left in the fridge. I'll make it," Ethan shouted in agreement, but without looking up. That day in my past life, I excitedly handed the reward checks from various sources to my parents, thinking we could finally have a good life, and they might love me more. Instead, it became my death sentence. My parents couldn't stop flipping the check over in their hands while Kyle and Ethan hovered nearby. "Is this for real? They pay for going to school? Are they idiots?" Ethan said skeptically. "Kyle's all about greed. I think it's for their public image, paying for reputation." My parents laughed heartily. "Luna, make the chicken, and you can have a leg today," Mom said, smiling warmly for once. Normally, when we had chicken, Kyle and Ethan got the legs and wings, my dad got the rest of the meat, and whatever was left went to Mom and me. Mom never thought it was unfair. The men ate well in our family, and even though I'd earned more for them than they could in a lifetime, I still didn't get a chicken leg that day. Instead, I got a wing, with Mom pretending to care. "Luna, doing well in exams means you should eat wings for good luck." Before long, the house smelled of chicken soup, and Dad came home from the factory. As the family sat down to eat, they all grabbed the parts they thought they deserved. I thought, "Go ahead, enjoy it. You won't have many more meals like this." After dinner, I cleaned up, and they had already gone back to their rooms. I went to the 5-square-meter makeshift room that was my space. We had a 3-bedroom apartment, and Kyle and Ethan refused to share a room, so I got the tiny storage space where only a bed fit. I couldn't even have a desk. I studied on a small tray on my bed, which had already started giving me backaches at 19. I dug out an old key from the box of clothes under my bed and snuck out. I took a cab for once, heading to Grandma Ruth's place, over 10 miles away. Ruth had been gone for over a year, and the house was now in my name. It was her last gift to me. Dad wanted to sell it, but when he heard it might be in a redevelopment area with a big payout, he held off. Now it's my best refuge. My time was short, and I didn't hold back. I handed $2 million to a contractor to transform it into a heat-proof safe haven within 5 days. I also contacted the largest local supermarket to list all the water, food, fruits, and daily items I could imagine needing, giving them the same time frame to deliver to Ruth's yard. The $5 million wouldn't last long, but time was tight and survival came first. I believed I'd earn many times that amount later. The afternoon flew by as I scrambled to set everything in motion. I could still feel the burn from the last apocalypse, a memory so vivid it made me shiver. So, under a plan of wide preparation, I ordered everything I could think of, knowing the house had a large basement. Before I could return, my old phone blared loud and shrill. Luna, where the hell are you? Why aren't my sneakers washed? How can I play basketball without them? Kyle's angry voice roared through the speaker. I'm at school sorting out paperwork. I'll wash your clothes and sneakers when I get back, I said, swallowing my anger. He didn't have much longer anyway. Back home, I hurried through cleaning his sneakers and set them on the balcony. They'd never be worn to the sports ground again, not in the approaching heat. I looked at our fridge bursting with food. It was my fault for hoarding. To save time for studying, I usually stocked up all at once. My parents didn't like this about me, thinking I was too lazy to get fresh food. Too bad my dad slapped me once and my ear stopped ringing just before the college entrance exams. Otherwise, I wouldn't have known what to do with the English listening tests. Who knew, when the high temperature apocalypse hit, the stuff I hoarded could save them. But they weren't grateful. They thought eating my food was a waste and tried various ways to kick me out of the house. I came up with different ways to use up the food at home, making a big table of dishes they loved. When everyone sat down to eat, I was still in the kitchen making soup. I brought out the pot, and Dad was on the phone. He glanced at me with surprise every now and then. After he hung up, he looked at me intently. Luna, did your college entrance exam results come out? Heard you got top marks and that the school and companies are offering you cash rewards? My heart skipped a beat, but I had already prepared an excuse. The class teacher asked me to take some pictures with some strangers, I said, for some program. When it airs and they make money, then I can get a bonus. How long will it take? Do you know how much you'll get? Dad asked with bright eyes. Maybe about a week. I heard millions, but who knows how much I'd really get. After hearing that, everyone's eyes lit up. Inside, I laughed coldly. They'd never get to spend the money I worked hard for in their lifetime. In the following days, Mom came across some stuff about the high-temperature apocalypse while watching short videos. When she talked to Dad and Kyle about it, he laughed at her for being short-sighted, saying these were just unreliable expert predictions. I casually asked if we should stock up on some food. You're just a spendthrift, Dad snapped angrily. Having you is unnecessary. Spending and spending. Do you think money grows on trees? Apart from eating, what can you even do? Mom nudged Dad's sleeve and whispered, Enough already. Luna's millions haven't come in yet. Dad glared at me and went back to his room. That night, while checking our supplies, I suddenly heard voices from Kyle's room. Dad, can Luna really bring in a few million? I heard from factory people that the top scorer in the province usually gets a reward. Ethan's voice came through then, saying, If Luna earns us a couple million, do we still sell her to marry that guy with the limp in the countryside? What? They were planning to sell me? This was the first I heard of it. Immediately, my hands clenched into fists. Who said we're selling your sister? That was Mom's voice. Inside, a flicker of hope sparked. Maybe there was a bit of motherly love left for me. She's just of age and needs a match. Don't make it sound so bad. Mom's words made me tremble, realizing even if there was no apocalypse, they'd still stop me from studying to sell me off for a mere dowry, ruining my life. Frustrated, I grabbed 2 packs of bread and 2 bags of sausage from home and fed the stray cats and dogs downstairs. They wouldn't last long in the apocalypse, but I could at least let them have a good meal. Maybe in their next life, they'd remember my kindness. I kept finding ways to use up all the food at home while secretly visiting Ruth's little garden, feeling a bit more at ease with the changes there. The temperature at home kept rising. Kyle stopped playing basketball, and Ethan's round body was sweating all over. The ice cream they made me was running low. Mom started to panic, saying, Heard veggies in the stores are getting expensive. Should we stock up too? Dad's forehead finally furrowed, but he said no need. If anything happens, I don't believe we won't be cared for. But as the temperature rose, sporadic water supply at home began, and even drinking water was limited. Yet at night, I heard Kyle and the others secretly using my stored water for baths, wishing they'd die quickly with it. The word was outside. Drinking water had risen to $200 per barrel. Dad was stingy, so buying water was out of the question. But he didn't know that soon $200 would be nothing because water would truly become the source of life. Looking at the nearly empty fridge, I thought it was time to leave. Dad, my teacher asked me to go to school to collect a check. Will you come with me? He glanced at the empty street and the blazing sun outside. Go yourself. Here's a card. Deposit the money there, and by the way, buy some food. I used to be so obedient that Dad didn't even have a tiny bit of doubt. Bring back some cold beer, Kyle ordered, fanning himself. And ice cream, Ethan said his sweaty face was resembling a pig's head. Okay, I nodded, heading out. I planned to enjoy cold drinks and ice cream while they roasted to death in the heat. At that moment, the fire within me burned hotter than the sun outside. I arrived at Ruth's house, shedding my sun protection gear, feeling the sweat slowly evaporate in her air-conditioned room. I stood before my grandma's portrait, lit incense, and respectfully nodded my head toward Ruth. Grandma, I'm home. I'll be with you from now on, so you won't be lonely anymore. Only back at Ruth's did I truly feel happy because the love and bright moments I felt for my family came from her. If not for Ruth, I wouldn't have finished high school, let alone top the province. After middle school, I got into the best high school with excellent grades. But my parents didn't want me to continue. Dad's coworker's daughter had graduated and gone to work in the South, sending loads of money back every month. I'd met that girl. She had dyed golden hair, wore a belly button showing tank top, and had heavy makeup unbefitting someone under 20. Neighbors gossiped about her, saying she'd been a bright student but had been ruined, becoming a prostitute at a young age. Back then, I didn't understand what a prostitute was, but thought her shorts were way too short, almost didn't cover her butt. Ruth found out about my parents' decision and, though seriously ill, came to my house. Luna is a great student. She needs to go to high school, Ruth stated firmly, her pale face unwavering. Mom looked annoyed. Ruth, mind your own generation's business. Don't interfere with Luna's matters. If you don't let Luna keep studying, I'll donate the old house and won't need you to support me. You won't even see a penny from my burial savings. My dad's face changed right away when he heard those words. Ruth, you're saying this, but we're not sending Luna to school because we have too many kids and can't afford it. No money to support her. Honestly, my grades were good, so high school tuition was waived. Housing was half price, and I didn't really spend much. Just as I was about to speak, Kyle twisted my arm and told me to go do the laundry. Finally, Ruth promised to give my parents $10,000 a year, so they would allow me to keep going to school. But Ruth saved money just to buy Kyle a computer and Ethan a phone. While I used Kyle's old textbooks, Ruth gave all her savings to my parents, enduring her illness with just some painkillers to help. She was late with money for a few days, and my dad went to Ruth, saying he'd pull me out of school. Ruth gave all her money to my ungrateful family. When she was really sick, I begged Mom to buy medicine for Grandma, and she just looked disgusted. Who doesn't get old? Dying of old age is natural. On her deathbed, Ruth held my hand and said, Luna, school is your only way out. Study hard. Don't resent your parents, just live your life well. Ruth transferred her house to my name ahead of time, giving me the last support to finish high school. Thinking of Ruth makes me hate that ungrateful bunch at home even more. Ruth, I can't learn to let go. They ruined me, and I want them all dead. After paying respects to Ruth, my mood was heavy. Only seeing them suffer can ease this heavy feeling in my heart. I installed several cameras at home, and now I can finally enjoy watching them in their final moments. In the cell phone video, a familiar face appeared, our neighbor Mia. Mia came over to borrow some food. Kyle was going to give her a bag of rice, and Mom was trying her best to stop him. But after all, middle-aged women aren't as strong as young guys. My brother impatiently pushed Mom to the ground and went out with the rice. In the past life, I stopped my brother from giving away food. He kicked me hard in the stomach, and I couldn't get up for a long time. In the end, he still gave Mia half a bag of rice. Well, I was beaten because of Mia before, and now Mia's speeding up my brother's death. Mia is our neighbor. Her husband is away all the time. One night after studying, I saw her hugging my brother. His head was buried in her neck, and his hand was all over her clothes. I was shocked, screamed, then ran back home fast. When my brother got home, he slapped me without a word and then punched and kicked me. He threatened to kill me if I told anyone what I saw. I saw the disgust and malice in his eyes. I knew he meant it. In the video, Mia took the rice and winked at my brother, who said with a smile, "No need to think. Come back if you need more. Luna is out buying food now." What? Mom sat on the ground, crying her heart out. Dad and Ethan were impatient, annoyed by the noise, crying their hearts out. Dad and Ethan were impatient, annoyed by the noise, but no one helped her up. My brother shut the door, looked at Mom, and said, "Luna will bring a lot of money back soon. Enough to buy plenty of rice." How could Mom not have any compassion? Turns out, my brother had compassion, just not for me. Ethan complained loudly when he heard my brother mention me. "Where is Luna? Is she dead or what?" The outside temperature was up to 113 degrees Fahrenheit. Not one of them was worried about my safety, only if I brought food back. I took ice cream from the fridge, enjoying the cool, sweet taste. I knew they'd never taste such good ice cream again, and that thought really made me rejoice inside. When it was time to make dinner, and I still wasn't home, Dad urged Mom to cook. She then noticed the fridge was nearly empty. Mom looked grim. They made a pot of thin porridge and stir-fried a few vegetables. Ethan complained while eating. "This isn't even fit for humans to eat. Is Luna dead outside? Why isn't she back?" Dad, sipping porridge, frowned. "She didn't run off with the money, did she?" Ethan glared. "If she dares, I'll kill her." Kyle took out his phone, and mine started ringing. "Luna, do you want to die? Get back here." "The company rep is showing me around. They said they'd give me the check after the tour and drive me home," I answered timidly. "How much are they giving you?" "1 million. I heard them gasp on the phone. Dad grabbed it. "Luna, once you get the money, put it in my account ASAP, you hear?" Before Dad could finish, Ethan was already shouting, "So much money! Get me the latest gaming console and bring back soda and ice cream." Looking at their excited faces on video, I kept agreeing to their demands. From hope to disappointment, then to a slow realization of death approaching, this made it more exciting. At night, it was nearly 104 degrees, and the old AC at home barely worked. I watched the men fighting over a broken fan, feeling pleased. I had the AC on, covered in a blanket, comfortably lying in bed. Tomorrow, it'll reach a dreadful 122 degrees. There's just half a bag of rice left. Let's see how chaotic they get. In the morning, I poured myself some milk, toasted bread, and fried eggs. I picked up the fork, enjoying the nutritious breakfast while watching the news. Thousands had already died from the heat. Social order was crumbling, and supermarkets were looted overnight. Once people realized this extreme weather could really kill, snatching survival resources became a natural instinct. Turning on the cameras, my brother woke up early, likely too hot to sleep. What was interesting was Mom sneaking my brother into her room when Dad wasn't around, taking out 2 hot dogs. The fat kid, after sipping on rice water for 2 days, was glowing with joy, tearing open the package and cramming it into his mouth. Then Kyle walked in, saw Mom playing favorites with Ethan, and his face instantly turned angry. Kyle walked in, saw Mom playing favorites with Ethan, and his face instantly turned angry. He snatched an unopened hot dog and slapped Ethan. "Mom, we're both your sons, but you favor Ethan. If that's the case, when you're old and dying, rely on your baby son." Mom's face changed. She quickly explained, "Ethan's picky. Hasn't eaten well. I was just worried." My brother wouldn't listen and stormed out. Ethan, slightly over a year younger and supposed to be looked after by me, should have cared for me, but he treated me the same as others. Though I did well in school, they held me back a year so I could look after Ethan. For he wasn't just ungrateful. Worse, he teamed up with other students to bully me at school. One time when it was pouring rain, he made me go home to get him an umbrella, leaving my clothes drenched and sticking to my body. He and a group of boys cornered me in an alley, saying disgusting things, mocking my developing body. My brother just stood there, watching them lay hands on me. If I hadn't gone crazy swinging my backpack at them and then ran home, who knows what could have happened? If I hadn't gone crazy swinging my backpack at them and then ran home, who knows what could have happened? When I finally got home, he ratted me out for taking his umbrella. That night, I got scolded and had to apologize to him. I didn't even get dinner. If home was where I felt oppressed, my brother was the extension of that, making me live in fear even at school. When noon came and I hadn't returned with money and food, they finally started to panic. The key thing was, the rice bag at home was almost empty. There were 3 grown men to feed, after all. Realizing the heat wave was getting serious, they freaked out, understanding that they might not survive without me. I felt it was the perfect time to show them how good my life was now, so they'd lose it. I video called Dad from my new phone. He was red with anger, watching me in a fancy house, eating a cool fruit salad with the AC on. Luna, did you run off with the money? You better come back here or don't think about stepping into this house again. Dad, listen, it's just too hot outside. A generous company arranged a place for me to stay with supplies to beat the heat. Didn't it occur to you to send some of that home? Don't forget you have a father and brothers. I'll break your legs if you don't. Dad, it's not that I don't want to send anything back, but it's so hot out there and I can't carry much on my own. But I asked them to let you guys come here. Why don't you all come over? They look tempted. If that's really impossible, someone should just come to pick up the supplies. After hanging up, I watched Dad call a meeting. We used to have family meetings at home about important things, but I was never included. Watching the video of them arguing and finally deciding to join me was amusing. Well, let's see how far they get with the temperature over 50 degrees outside. I sent Dad a fake location, just 5 kilometers away. They hyped themselves up and started out, only to return in under 10 minutes. Their shoe soles nearly melted and their skin was red and burnt. Back home, they rushed to slurp up the water in the kitchen basin, quickly finishing it all. Mom tried to warn them, "We have to ration the water. There was no water supply all day yesterday." But selfish people never care about what others have to say. After drinking, they wore only their undershorts for cooling and started discussing their next step. If we can't get out, let's trick Luna into coming back. Even if she only has a little, with $500,000, we can buy supplies from the neighbors. Ethan, with the sharpest mind, came up with this plan. Soon my phone rang again. Luna, your mom's got a heat stroke. You have to come back now. The video showed Mom pretending to be sick, though it wasn't entirely fake. She did exhaust herself from going outside, her face flushed and sweaty. They had felt the scorch outside, yet still tried to lure me back. I smirked inside. I can't, Dad. I'm not strong enough. Look, I've got bread, sausages, iced Coke, and beer here. So many good things you can't buy outside, even if you have money. I can't carry it all anyway. I don't want to part with any of it. They stared at the freezer on my camera, their eyes turning red with envy. Caught between the heat and the abundance on display, they were truly stuck. Finally, they decided to send someone to collect it. I didn't expect they'd send Dad instead of Mom. Their reasoning was I feared him the most, so I'd obey. Dad was stunned to be chosen. He roared, "Luna, listen to your mom the most, not me." Mom initially looked reluctant to choose Dad, but now she was utterly speechless with disbelief. Dad, you should go. Mom's not as strong. She might actually collapse halfway there. At least you're sturdy enough to make it to Luna. My 22-year-old 6-foot brother suggested this. He knew it was just a possibility. Just maybe he'd make it. Dad was pushed outside by him and my brother, while Mom stood still. And in the end, she tossed an umbrella through the door crack for him. It's funny. When I was kicked out, Mom didn't even think to give me a hat for the sun. But what good will an umbrella do? The result will still be the same. Before long, there was knocking on the door again. Mom wanted to open it, but my brother yanked her back. "That's your dad." "Your dad." Mom's face was in sheer panic, tears streaming down. In my past life, when I knocked on the door, I vaguely heard her say, "Don't open it. Either bring food back or die outside. If he really dies, Ruth's house is mine." Mom's limited feelings were all for Ethan, Kyle, and Dad, not the Ruth who raised her or the daughter she birthed. I finally realized Mom despises weak women. She's used to being dominated by patriarchy and became its staunchest ally and most vicious accomplice. Resting in Ruth's basement, I listened to Dad's cursing and banging on the door through the phone. Gradually, his voice faded, disappearing into silence. Then I heard Mom sobbing and my brother's annoyed yelling. "Remember, we have barely any rice left. One less person eating gives us a few more days to live." Mom covered her mouth, curled in the corner, mourning her husband. Dad was luckier than me. Whether he's dead or not, at least someone cried for him. Unlike me, if I were dead, my family would be celebrating inside, celebrating that my $5 million is now theirs. They'd also be celebrating that Ruth's house, under my name, is theirs too. In my mind, I can see my dad at the door, just like in my previous life, using all his strength to bang on it, slowly losing strength and becoming dehydrated until he passes out. He would end up dried out, finally dying like a withered shrimp. He's my father. Yet I don't feel any sadness. Instead, I feel relief. He brought me into this world, but also endless pain. The current twisted state of the Lee family is largely his fault. He deserves what he gets. Another day passes, and my mom looks towards the door countless times but never musters the courage to open it. Meanwhile, Kyle gets increasingly irritable because there's no water left in the house. Eventually, it's my mom who cleverly opens the freezer. The old fridge has a thick layer of ice in it. She used to hate how it took up so much room, but today, it's their lifesaver. Luckily, the ice is solid enough. My mom scrapes off a layer, fills a bowl with rice, and makes a pot of rice soup. I watch my brother pour half a bowl for each person. Right now, he's the strongest in the house, so he calls the shots. What he does isn't really wrong. It just lets the family hold on a bit longer. For me, though, having them live a while longer just means more suffering, and that sounds good. If there was no power outage, maybe his plan could stretch a few days. But with the heat, there's no electricity citywide. Luckily, I have prepared a generator and diesel at Ruth's house. From dealing with everything at the old house, I've become super self-sufficient. So even if something sudden happens, I'm covered. I even anticipated this scenario and set up wireless power and internet for my home's cameras, so I wouldn't miss a thing. In about 5 more days, the heat wave's gonna break. But until then, the real test of humanity begins for those in my former home. With the power out, the fridge doesn't work, and the little bit of ice is the last water source. Ethan, being overweight, can't handle heat well and needs more water. When he loses it and tries to snatch the basin under my brother's control, he gets knocked to the floor. His head hits the edge of the coffee table, leaving a trail of blood. Is he really risking Ethan's life over this? I scoff inside. Mom rushes over, screaming, to press on Ethan's bleeding head. Thankfully, the injury isn't too bad. She helps him to the couch, carefully wrapping his wound with bandages, crying softly. There's a saying that parents give more favor to those who need it, yet it never applied to me. I got hurt countless times, cutting my hand cooking, hitting my leg while cleaning, injuring my head moving stuff, and taking hits from my dear family. But I've never been treated so gently. Watching the video, I cried for the first time. Not because of the lack of motherly love, but for my past self. I tried so hard to do everything right, wishing my family would love me a bit. Past me didn't know self-love and got bullied, belittled, until ultimately betrayed. I shed tears for that naive and timid old self. In this second chance, if they don't love me, they can all die. But I will love myself fully. Watching the video, my mom comforts Ethan, who glares hatefully towards Kyle's room. Ethan is spiteful. I once slipped, dirtying his backpack while carrying it for him, and he chucked mine into a mud pit. For a month, his backpack felt odd until I found he'd hidden bricks in mine as revenge. His aggression is terrifying. I eagerly wait for Ethan's next move and plan to fan the flames. I dial Kyle's number, knowing his phone battery is low. Luna, you actually have the nerve to call? Do you even know the state the house is in? Relax, bro. I figured food might be running low. There are 2 packs of instant noodles left in my room. Kyle, who's already starving, hears there's food and his eyes light up. Where are they? He whispers under the bed in my room's storage cabinet. You should share it. Anything else? Nope. The call ends abruptly. That night, Kyle's caught sneaking the noodles by Ethan. Ravenous, Ethan attacks Kyle like a rabid dog. Mom, also hungry, strains her neck to see what's happening. She tries to separate them, but ends up hitting herself. Seeing her overweight son overwhelmed, Mom grabs a vase and smashes it over Kyle's head. Kyle wasn't prepared and gets knocked out. Ethan rolls on top, gripping his throat. For drinking water, for eating my food, he snarls, squeezing hard. For hitting me, for choking me. You should die. Then there's no one left to fight over food. Frightened, Mom doesn't realize Ethan's hands have been on Kyle's neck for 5 minutes. Only when she screams does Ethan snap out of it. It's too late. Kyle lies unmoving, unquestionably dead. I thought Mom would be the first one sacrificed, but it turned out to be Dad because he ate too much. I thought Kyle would outlast everyone because he was ruthless, but never expected my own mom and pig-like Ethan to take him out. Mom dragged Ethan, stumbling, out of Kyle's room. Once Ethan realized what was happening, he was shocked, his plump face turning pale. Mom didn't have many tears left. She had cried too much these days. But that fear didn't even last half a day before he stepped back into Kyle's room to grab the unfinished instant noodles. There wasn't much left to begin with. And during the fight, most of it had fallen onto the ground. The starving guy lay on the floor, picking up noodle scraps like a dog. He even flipped Kyle's body over to check for any noodles underneath. Watching that gave me chills, but the worst was yet to come. 2 days passed, and Mom was so hungry that she started having hallucinations, repeatedly calling out Dad's and Kyle's names. After staring at Kyle's door with a cold gaze countless times, Ethan finally went in with a kitchen knife. The extreme heat finally passed. Ever since Ethan came out of Kyle's room with blood on his lips, I stopped watching the surveillance when the end came. I sent the video evidence to the police department's email. It didn't take long before Ethan got caught. First, Mom saw Kyle's ruined body, and then watching Ethan getting arrested pushed her over the edge. She used all her strength and jumped off our balcony. With everything settled, I finally walked out of Ruth's house. I took the $200,000 I had left and started getting the stuff I needed for college, preparing for my freshman year. Before school started, I got a call from the police asking me to come by. I refused to write a letter of forgiveness, and combined with Ethan's brutal behavior, he was sentenced to death. I signed my name, Luna, on the notification. That was the last time I'd ever write that name because I planned to change it. On September 6th, I walked her through the gates of Harvard University. Hi, are you a freshman? What's your name? Need help with your luggage? My name's Aurora. It signifies the hope of seeing light after the clouds pass.